Welcome to the Papa Report, the show that's dedicated to educating and empowering you so that you can live a stress-free retirement. I'm your host, Kristen Oakley, and I'm joined today by the president of Diversified Planning Strategies Advisors, John Papa. John, it's great to be in the studio with you.
Great to see you, Kristen. How are you?
I'm great, thank you. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well, thank you.
Wonderful.
Great to be here.
Oh my gosh, I'm so excited.
We got a lot of stuff to talk about, right? What's
so
going on
much
today?
to talk about, yes. And I know you've prepared a great show for our viewers at home. Today we're going to be talking all about the unknown variables that affect your retirement planning. So of course, John, at the top of the list, we have to talk about inflation and the impact it's having on folks' retirement planning.
Well, yeah, I mean, you think about it, you know, the inflationary rate the government keeps telling us is in the 8% range, 6% range. We don't really know what that rate actually is, right? But let me just give you some statistics. I mean, I went to fill up my car with gas the other day, and it's up 14, 15%. Utilities are up 12% when you run your house. How about a dozen eggs is up 70%?
It's
right?
crazy, right?
It's crazy. So the things that we use, you know, bread, 15%. The things that we use are up double digits. So what we're being told is not exactly what is going on in our lives. And it's having a huge effect on the people in our practice, because when you retire, you're basically living on not a fixed income, but your income's kind of set between whether it's pension, Social Security, and savings. You have a set income stream. And if your expenses are going up more and more every year, it's going to affect that budget. In fact, there's some statistics most people don't even understand. You can live in retirement over 20 years, okay? People aren't factoring that in their retirement plan. So if you're going to live for 20 years in retirement, at today's inflationary rate, expenses are going to double every 6 to 7 years. So that means your expenses are going to double almost 3 times in your retirement phase, right? So what's your plan for that? Do you have a plan for that? People that we're seeing that come into our office, they don't have a plan. They don't even address it or even talk about it. So it's a huge issue.
And you know, one of the things that makes this such an important issue is this is something that previous generations didn't have to worry with. It used to be back in the day, you retired at 62, maybe you were passing away at 65, 70. You didn't have this longevity of time to be preparing for. I mean, you could easily live another 30 years.
Right, yeah. I mean, the statistics show that if a married couple lives to age 65, one of them is there's an 85% chance one of them is going to live to 90 or older. That's 20, 30 years in retirement. It's another phase of life. If you don't have a plan for how your income is going to carry you through the retirement phase of your life, you're going to be in trouble. And that is one of the biggest things that we're seeing in our office today. People coming in and talking about, you know, we live on a fixed income. How do we create more income? That's what's the number one thing. Oh,
for sure, because that's the number one cause of causing stress in retirement, right? Is this fear of outliving our money. And so in that vein, here's what's hard, is none of us know how long we're going to live, right? And so one of the variables we have to deal with is understanding this longevity. So talk to us a little bit more about that.
Well, I mean, like I just said, there's the average age of a couple, if you make it to 65, right, God willing, there's an 85% chance someone's living to 90 or older, okay? People aren't prepared for that. They think they only have to prepare for 10 or 15 years in retirement. So they're underestimating how long they're gonna live. They're figuring, I have a set income stream. I'm only gonna be around for 10 or 15 more years. That's what we think is gonna happen. So I don't have to worry about my income streams and the changes in my expenses. But that's not true. If one of them's gonna live 30 years more, you need to factor in and have a plan on how you're going to address these rising costs. And at today's inflation rate, that's going to happen a few times in your retirement life.
Right, for sure.
That's what we're seeing on a regular basis.
Absolutely. So not only are folks underestimating how long they're going to live, but I know you also have shared with me that they're overestimating their investment income. So talk a little bit about that.
Well, yeah, I mean, they've been told by the Wall Street big box firm people that you can pull 4% out of your portfolio and live a stress-free retirement. But we've seen in the last few years that that plan is totally out the window. You know, you pull out 4% on your portfolio, inflation is at 8, 9, 10. We just talked about things in double digits. So you're going to run out of money. You're going to be pulling more money out than the 4% withdrawal. So you have to have a guaranteed income plan in place so that you can work through the increasing costs that are going to happen in your retirement life.
Well, and this is especially critical at this time because in 2022, we saw incredible market volatility.
Well,
So you're being hit with a double whammy, right? Not only are account values down, but
yeah. So what are people doing when the market does that, right? We call it being too conservative in their investments, right? So what they're doing is they're going to cash. Oh my God, the market's down. I'm afraid. I don't know what to do, because all of their assets are in the Wall Street bucket. The big box firms do not want your money leaving Wall Street. Okay,
Right.
whether it's stocks, bonds, mutual funds, REITs, whatever, it's all in Wall Street, which has any type of risk. There's interest rate risk, market volatility. Everything in that world has risk. And if you just jump to cash in the first problem that you see, you're now going to miss the rebounds that always happen. So we talk about at our firm is having a truly diversified portfolio, and we talk about this 3 investment world discussion that we have with our clients. Let's look at the tools that actually do protect your assets from market drops.
Right.
That's truly diversified. That's not jumping to cash at the first sign of a problem in the markets, because you're going to miss the rebounds, and the rebounds always come. They never not come. So that's kind of a big issue that we've been getting way too conservative in their investments, because they're not invested correctly.
Well, and you know what folks don't realize is every way you invest your money poses some type of risk.
Right.
And I've heard it said that if you just put all your money into cash, guess what you're actually doing? You're going broke safely, because you're not earning anything. And now, as we've talked about, inflation is actually eroding the purchasing power of your money. So it's not as safe as people might.
Exactly. You know, your purchasing power is decreasing every day that your money's sitting in cash. Now, I know recently, banks have raised interest rates because the Federal Reserve's raising rates, and your return is getting a little bit better, but you're in the 2 to 3% range in the bank right now.
Right.
But we just talked about inflation's at, the real inflation is at 10, 20% inflation. So if you have your money sitting in a bank account, you're just going to be draining it.
Exactly.
You might not be losing it because of the markets, but you're going to be losing it because it's not going to buy anything.
Right.
A couple of years down the road.
So not only is the price of eggs going up, but our nest egg is getting
It's
eroded
going down.
as well.
Exactly.
So what are some solutions for folks when folks come in and they meet with you, and maybe they have this idea? They think, John, I can't handle this. I can't handle this roller coaster of what's happening in the markets. I want to take out my money. I want to put it into cash. What does that conversation look like, and what solutions are you able to provide?
Well, that's a great question, Chris. And what we do is, as a licensed fiduciary, my job on your team is basically to say, what are your options out there? And that's what this 3 investment world discussion that we have with our clients. Every client that comes in, we have this discussion. Where are the places you can put your money? And what are the pros and cons of every one of them? The banks is a place to put your money for an emergency fund. Okay, so I can have some money there in the event I need a new roof on my house or air conditioning unit, which I just paid for recently in my own house. I saw how expensive that was.
Yeah.
So you have an emergency fund in a bank, and that's really it. Then we look at the hybrid insurance world for protection. They typically pay better interest rates than what the banks are paying, and your money's completely protected. They also offer indexed contracts that can link the earnings to a market like the S&P 500, but your principal's protected. So when you tell them the pros and cons of those products, and then you also talk about Wall Street, because like we talked about, people living longer, you do need to have some growth in your portfolio.
For sure.
So when you can divide a person's portfolio into really truly diversified positions, they're not making panic decisions, and they're not jumping to all cash in all their investments and getting hurt that way. So having this 3 investment world discussion is something that we do every day in our office, a couple times a day, with new people coming in off these shows, and it's really enlightening for them to see, wow, I didn't know about these options.
Right.
Because the big box firms aren't telling them about it.
Exactly. Right.
So it's really cool. We love what we do. Watching the people when they learn that they can protect their assets and still get growth without putting all their money in Wall Street. It's a really cool solution to go through with them.
It's such a relief, a relief for folks.
The weight that comes off their shoulders, it's a really nice solution to have.
Well, John, I know we're going to have to cut to a commercial break, but you have a very special offer prepared for our viewers today. So would you mind sharing what that is?
So true. So for the first 10 callers, you're going to get an introduction to the Diversified Planning Strategies Report. It's our DPS report for short, which is basically a written complimentary financial plan by our team of certified financial planners. And that will get you to a stress-free retirement. All you have to do is dial 844-534-4452. Get a date in our calendar. We have our team ready. Get a date on the calendar. We'll get you that complimentary DPS report.
John, thank you so much. And again, to our viewers at home, that number to call is on the bottom of your screen, 844-534-4452. You can also take out your smartphone and simply scan that QR code in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen. That will take you over to a landing page and allow you to set up and schedule your appointment that way as well. We have a lot more hidden variables to talk about when it comes to your retirement planning with John Papa right after this.
How confident are you in your current financial plan? Do you know with certainty how the recent market volatility will affect your future hopes and dreams? How much are you paying in taxes? And how much are you losing to unnecessary high fees? You didn't work to save this money so that you could spend your time worried in retirement. Now is the time to take charge of your finances so you can feel confident about your future. Call in during the next 30 minutes of today's show only to set up an absolutely complimentary, no obligation, full-blown financial review that will result in your own customized written plan that we're giving away complimentary to the first 10 people who respond. We'll start with a full-blown analysis of what you already have by running a report to untangle how much you are currently paying in fees, how you're allocated for risk, and what it's costing to work with your current advisor. Next, we'll identify your goals. Where do you see yourself in the next 5 years? Where do you want to go? And who do you hope to go there with? Is your current financial plan set up to get you there without mishap? Let's design a roadmap to create a financial plan you can follow with confidence. Get the piece that so many people are missing from their retirement. Find out how having a written plan can make a difference to your retirement dreams. Call now to schedule your complimentary, no-obligation, full-blown financial review today.
Welcome back to the Papa Report. I'm your host, Kristen Oakley, here with John Papa, president of DPS Advisors. John, we're having such a wonderful show today, jam-packed full of information.
Right.
We're talking about a lot of the hidden variables, the unknown variables that affect folks' retirement planning. And I want to go back to something that you said in the first segment. We were talking about the 4% rule,
Right.
which is something that a lot of folks have probably heard of before. And you were sharing why that doesn't work anymore. And I'm curious, I would love to hear a tangible example just so folks can wrap their brain around
Right. So,
why
Kristen,
that's the
we
case.
had a couple come in a couple of weeks ago who were retired. Okay, they just retired. They had $1 million in their portfolio. This is the beginning of last year, and their RMD was scheduled to be about $40,000 off that $1 million
Right, so their
portfolio.
required minimum distribution
minimum
that they have to
distribution, which
take.
they have to take out, which they didn't even know they had to do.
Right,
But-
which is true for a lot of folks. I
Right,
mean, a
and
lot
we'll
of
hit
people
that in another segment
Yeah.
of what the Secure Act 2.0 did for retirement plans. But these people, they were in their first year of collecting RMDs, and it happened to be last year, and their $1 million portfolio, they had to take $40,000 out of that portfolio. And the market was down for them. They were in this 60-40 balanced portfolio that their Wall Street advisor told them was the best way to
Kind
be
of the
saved.
standard, the more cookie-cutter approach.
Cookie cutter,
Yep.
that everyone does it. So they thought they were great and in good shape, and their portfolio was down 25% last year. Okay, now you take that on top of a $40,000 distribution, they were down $290,000 in their first year of retirement
Oh, my
on a $1 million portfolio. They now only have 710 left, and they're
Wow.
sitting there going, "What happened?
What happened, right?
What happened, right?" So our job now to take over is to say, well, first of all, we need to understand where do you put your money, and we went right back to that, what we were just talking about, the 3 investment world discussion, and say, here are the options. We need to guarantee some income for you, create for your RMD. How can we do it guaranteed wise? And
Right.
use all the financial tools in the toolbox. That's what a licensed fiduciary does. We explain the pros and cons of every tool in that box and see if it works for them. And you know,
Right.
again, I don't force anything down a client's throat.
No.
I explain everything as their fiduciary advisor, and then we build a plan together, and they decide what works for them. You know,
Right, right.
That's what they do, because you can't be 1 year in retirement down almost 29%
Yeah, that's
in
a
your
frightening
portfolio. That's
thought.
year one. We talked about
Right.
living 30 years in retirement. What are they going to do? That's why they're panicking.
Exactly. Yep. And you want to get on the front end of this, right?
Yeah,
you
you
want to
wanna-
be doing
exactly.
preventative care, not having to be in the emergency room.
Exactly.
essentially.
And that's exactly a great analogy.
Right,
Exactly.
for sure. Well, a couple things you said that really do set you apart and
Right.
set DPS advisors apart. You mentioned being a fiduciary,
Right.
and I know that that's a word that gets thrown around a lot, but for our viewers at home, can you unpack what that actually means?
Right. So basically, when you work with a licensed fiduciary, they have to have the client's standards and interests over their own at all times. So regardless of what type of investment solution or plan they're coming up with, they need to explain exactly all of the pros and cons to that investment. They also have to explain the compensation of that investment, because most people don't know how their advisor is getting paid. So
Right.
part of the solution, or part of the licensed fiduciary's plan or report to the client is, we're going to tell you how we get paid.
Right.
So with that, when you're going over all of the pros and cons of every investment tool that they can use, and you're showing them this could be good for you or not, I need to take your care to the next level. I have to ask questions about what are your goals, what are your wants, not just selling you a tool or a product out of a toolkit. Let's tailor it and fit it to your specific situation. And then your job is to say, hey, that sounds like it works for me. I'm interested in that, and let's build this plan together, all with your needs and wants over our own at all times. That's what a licensed fiduciary does.
Well, and I love that, John, because that is your heart, right? To always
Right.
serve the client's best interest.
Yeah.
And when you know that you're working with a licensed fiduciary, you can have that peace of mind that they have a legal obligation
Right.
to serve your best interests. And that's really important. That's a huge
Our license
distinguisher.
dictates that. We're
Exactly.
required to do that, So it's really cool.
And then the other second thing that you mentioned, because you're independent,
Right.
that gives you an advantage, because no longer are you limited. When you work for a big box firm, you are limited with what kind of investment tools you can
Right.
share with your clients. But being independent, oh my gosh, you have the world at your fingertips in that way, right?
Kristen, I use this analogy all the time in our office when clients come in. They're like, I don't understand this licensed fiduciary. I hear it all over the place. It's like in magazines and financial magazines. I'm like, let me give you a quick analogy, okay? A licensed fiduciary is basically Home Depot. Let's say you're going in and you need to hang a picture on your wall in your house. You need a hammer,
Right.
okay? And you're working with one of the big box firms, and they take out a hammer and they sell you a 20-pound hammer. Right, Kristen?
Okay, yep.
That's a suitable recommendation. That person's not going to get in trouble. A licensed fiduciary, that's a problem, okay? I need to ask you some questions. Hey, how's your health? Have you had any orthopedic issues with your shoulders,
lift a
arms?
20-pound
Can you lift a 20-pound hammer?
Right.
Let's go to aisle 12, and we're going to look at all the hammers I have, from 1 pound to sledgehammers, and let's find the tool that you can work with to hang that picture. That's a licensed fiduciary.
Absolutely.
Not a big box firm broker who's just selling tools out of their
Right.
toolbox.
And the transparency is really key as well,
Yeah.
because as you said, if you don't know how your financial advisor is getting paid, that's a problem.
It's a huge problem.
But with you, people are going to get that transparency.
Right.
They're going to understand exactly where their money's going, how you're being
Exactly.
compensated, and
Exactly.
it eliminates that conflict of interest.
Yeah, I'm on a Zoom call tonight after the show. We're going over with a new client from the show, and part of it's they want to know how I get paid, how I get
Right.
compensated, and we're going to talk about that
Yeah.
before they become a client.
Right.
You need to know that. You can't make decisions about whether you're going to hire John Papa or DPS advisors without knowing how I'm getting compensated.
Exactly.
And it's a huge part of our practice, and we disclose it not because we have to. I think about what I would do in my own life. I'm not going to just sign up with somebody not knowing what it's going to cost me.
For sure.
So that's a cool
Absolutely.
part of what we do.
Well, if someone's listening at home and they're thinking, gosh, I want to get on a Zoom call with John. I want to know about my situation. I want to make sure that I'm getting the best advice for me.
Right.
What do they need
And I'm
to
getting
do?
really good at Zoom. So no, actually,
Aren't we all?
Right. For the first 10 callers who make an appointment into our office, we're going to give you an introduction to the Diversified Planning Strategies Report, our DPS report for short, which is basically a comprehensive written financial plan that's drawn up by our team of certified financial planners who are going to help you get to a stress-free retirement. All you have to do is dial 844-534-4452, get a date on our calendar, get your DPS report, and get to a stress-free retirement. Dial 844-534-4452.
John, thank you so much. Again, to our viewers at home, all you need to do is pick up the phone and make that important phone call, 844-534-4452. You can also take out your smartphone and scan that QR code, and that will get you connected to be able to set up an appointment with John and his team so that you can come in and get your complimentary written plan, your very own DPS report. We have more with John Papa after this.
As a good saver, you've been putting away money during your working years. Studies find that the biggest fear of retirees is running out of money. Market volatility isn't just the downward movement of stock prices, it's the size and frequency of change. The more dramatic the ups and downs, the higher the volatility. This can put savers who are newly retired or a few years away from being retired at greater risk. Today's generation of retirees is not receiving traditional pensions as our parents or grandparents did. Instead, we have retirement accounts such as 401ks or 403bs. These accounts typically expose your money to market risk. The last thing you want right before retirement is to lose a portion of the money you need for income. But how do you turn these accounts into a retirement income? Is it safe to keep all your retirement money sitting in the stock market? The last thing you want is to lose a portion of the money you need for income due to market loss. By working with a financial professional, you can learn how to turn a portion of your savings into an income stream for life and income for the life of your spouse if you're married. We all have moments in our lives when we wish we had taken action sooner. Don't let procrastination reign on your retirement parade. Act now before it's too late. Please call our office to set up your no-cost, no-obligation retirement income review today.
Welcome back to the Papa Report. I'm Kristen Oakley here with John Papa, president of DPS Advisors. John, we've talked about so many of the hidden variables that affect people's retirement planning today. And I want to go back to something you said. A lot of folks are scared based on market volatility, especially in recent months, and they want to pull their money out. They want to, take it to cash or whatnot. You've talked about how if you do that, then the problem is you miss the upswing when it comes. But let's shift gears a little bit. Can you tell me about some of the unrealistic expectations that folks might have and why that can be a problem when it comes to their returns?
Well, definitely, Kristen. So here's what happens, okay? So person comes in, they want to tone down the risk in their portfolio. Like the example we gave earlier segment, person was down 25% in their portfolio. So when we tone down the risk now going forward, we also have to educate them on, you're not going to get the returns when the markets are going really well. You're not going to get those huge returns, because if you want to get those huge returns, you have to stay really volatile in your portfolio, very aggressive, and you're going to get the downturns again. So when we build these plans and tone down the risk for them, we actually have to educate them on, now we're going to shrink the positives and also shrink the negatives. So getting them to understand that their portfolio performance is going to be lower than when the markets were going good. They're just not used to being in that world, okay? They're used to building a portfolio, accumulating and accumulating, and you need to be aggressive at those times. But now when you start toning it down and protecting, you also have to be aware that the returns aren't going to be as great. You can still do very well in a diversified, protected portfolio. It's just not going to be as good as if all your money's in stocks,
Right. Well, things change as we get older, right? And this is one of the things that changes when
So if you're toning down the risk, you also have to understand you're also toning down the amount of return you're going to get.
For sure. And that's a healthy expectation to have. We're getting down to the wire here on this show, but I think it's important to highlight one of the other issues that we commonly see with folks who are retiring, and that is that currently over 40% of Americans are getting over half of their retirement income from Social Security.
Yeah, which is a huge issue, because Social Security, when it was created, was not meant to be the #1 overall retirement source, okay? Back in the early days when my grandparents were working, they didn't make a lot of money. They paid into Social Security, and they had more Social Security income, or the same amount as income when they retired, than they did when they were working. The times were so different back in the 60s and the 50s and 60s. Okay, then in the late 70s, the government did away with, they also had a pension. I forgot to mention that. They had a pension with the company they worked for. So your retirement income was Social Security, pension income, and savings, okay? Typically didn't need more than the pension and Social Security, so they were fine. Today's day, that doesn't work, because in 1978, when the government changed the rules and created the 401k, they did away with pensions. There's very few pensions out there. So now people are relying on Social Security as their sole source of income in retirement, and that's a scary proposition, especially what we talked about earlier today with inflation and expenses rising. I mean, even the expenses with Social Security, cost of living is not going up where inflation's going up. So you cannot, it was never meant to be relied upon as your sole source of retirement. And they took away all the other strategies about where you used to be able to try to maximize a person's Social Security. We're trying to show people to delay Social Security as long as you can, because there are guaranteed increases from 67 to 70. So we're trying to show people how we can maximize your Social Security benefit if you haven't turned it on yet. So that's a huge issue and huge factor in when we talk about Social Security.
Right, because a lot of folks don't realize, they think, oh, yay, I've turned 62. It's
Right.
time to claim.
Let me turn it on.
But then you lock yourself in at that lower amount and you're locked in for the rest of your life.
Kristen, if you turn on Social Security at 62, and let's just assume you're going to have the maximum benefits, okay? And your husband and wife, 62 years old, and you turn it on at 62, I think the statistics show that you'll collect about $1.6 million in retirement assets, okay? If you wait till 67 or 66 based on your birth date, what your full retirement age is, you get like $1.9 million, okay, which is a few $100,000 more.
Right.
If you wait till 70 to turn it on, then you're actually going to get, I think, $2.2 million.
It goes up by 8%.
It goes up by 8% from 67 to 70. So what's a person supposed to do in the meantime? We have to look at other areas, other financial tools that can create guaranteed income so that you can delay that Social Security.
Right.
And one other factor that no one's factoring in on when delaying Social Security is the person's health.
Yes.
Right? So if you don't think you're going to live to life expectancy because you have health issues and things like that, well, then maybe it might be better off for you to turn on Social Security before age 70.
Right.
But you have to ask those questions, and that's
Yes.
part of what we're doing in our office when we meet with clients. I want to know about your health history. How is your family history health-wise? What is the longevity in your family? How long did your grandparents live? Things like that, because that helps determine when you should turn it on.
For sure. Well, it just points to the fact that there's so many personal factors that far outweigh the calculations sometimes.
And everything's different for every person that comes in the office, whether a couple or a single person. It's different for everybody. And as a licensed fiduciary, we need to tailor your plan exactly for you, so it works for you. And that's what we do.
Well, for folks who are sitting at home going, you know what, I think it's time. I need to get this complimentary written plan.
Right.
What would you say to them?
Well, I would say be one of the first 10 callers to call and get a date on our calendar. We will give you the complimentary written financial plan that is designed by our team of certified financial advisors. And you dial 844-534-4452. We'll get you a date on the calendar. You'll get your complimentary written financial plan by our CFPs, and we'll get you on the road to a stress-free retirement.
John, thank you so much. It's such a great joy to be with
Kristen.
you. Such valuable information to our viewers at home. We so appreciate you joining us today. Again, we encourage you, don't wait. Take advantage of this opportunity to call in and get your complimentary written financial plan from John and his team. You will sit down with them. They'll be able to find out about you. You can find out about them, see if it would be a good fit, and most of all, leave with that peace of mind knowing that you're receiving advice that is in fact in your best interest. Just call the number on the bottom of your screen, 844-534-4452. Also, you can scan that QR code and set up your appointment that way as well. We love you, New Jersey. Be educated, be empowered, and most of all, be prepared. We'll see you next week.